She was the child every teacher loved. She sat in the front row. She raised her hand. She waited her turn. Always. And then she came home, and something about the back of her mother's head, just the ordinary sight of her own mother standing at the kitchen counter, something about that cracked her wide open. The bag dropped, the shoes flew, and a sound came out of that child that had absolutely nothing to do with shoes. I know that child. I have known many of them. And I want to tell you something right now, before anything else. That child, she was not falling apart. She was finally safe. I have been watching children for a very long time. My own, my grandchildren, the ones next door, the ones in the park, the ones who grow up and come back to tell me things they couldn't say when they were small. I have sat with mothers who were certain they were doing something terribly wrong. I have sat with fathers who Googled things at midnight that they were too embarrassed to say out loud in the morning. And in almost every single case, what they were describing was not a problem. It was a signal, and they had been reading it upside down. And in all of that watching, the thing that has surprised parents the most, every single time, is this. The child who holds it together everywhere else is the one most likely to collapse at home. Not because something is wrong with them, because everything is right. Let me tell you about Ari. My grandson is not a dramatic child. He is precise, actually, quite contained. He notices everything, but he files most of it away quietly, which, if you know Ari, is both impressive and slightly exhausting to witness. There was a week last term, I heard about it from his mum, where his teacher had used the words model student twice in the same conversation. Model student. That same week, Ari came home on a Thursday and sat down at the kitchen table and, for no identifiable reason, cried for 22 minutes about a broken pencil. His mum called me. She said, "Nana, I don't understand him." I said, "I think you understand him perfectly. You just don't know it yet." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "So the pencil was not about the pencil." I said, "The pencil was never about the pencil." She said, "So I went out and bought him a new one." I said, "Yes, that is exactly what I am talking about." Here is what I want you to understand about a child who behaves beautifully in the world. All day long, that child is making calculations. Not consciously, not deliberately, but their nervous system is scanning every room they walk into. Is this safe? Do I need to perform here? What does this person need from me right now? A classroom has rules. A playground has a social architecture. A friend's house has its own unspoken expectations. And a good child, a perceptive, sensitive, quietly brilliant child, reads all of it and holds all of it. All day long. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that child is not tired. They are full of every feeling they quietly set aside to get through the day. And then they walk through your door. And their body recognizes something it has been waiting for since morning. Safety. Now, stay with me here, because this is the part most parents never quite reach. When your child falls apart at home, your instinct is to fix it. Of course it is. You love them. The sound of their distress is one of the most physically uncomfortable things a parent can experience. So you move toward it. You offer solutions. You say, "It's fine. It's just a pencil. Let's have a snack. Let's talk about it. Let's make it better." And here is what I have watched happen, quietly, in kitchens and hallways and bedrooms, over many decades of paying attention. The faster a parent rescues, the more efficient the fix, the less the child learns that the feeling can be survived. I am not saying you are doing something wrong. I am saying you are doing something human, and there is a difference between those two things. Maya, my granddaughter, Ari's little sister, she is 5. And Maya is what I would call a whole-body feeler. When something is too much for Maya, you know it. The neighborhood knows it. One afternoon, she sat down on the kitchen floor because her orange had a pip in it. Not one pip. One pip. Her father, Maya's dad, he looked at me over her head with the expression of a man who had not anticipated this particular Thursday. I held up one finger, which in our family means wait. Do not intervene. Let the pip moment pass. He waited. Maya cried for 4 minutes. Then she stood up, picked up the orange, and ate the rest of it. He looked at me. I said she needed to be allowed to find the bottom of it. He said, "The bottom of the pip feeling?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Is there a book about this?" I said, "There is, now." What Maya's dad saw that afternoon was a child falling apart over fruit. What I saw was a child who knew, somewhere below language, that she was in a place where the bottom of the feeling was allowed. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most important things a child can know about the people they live with. The meltdown is not the problem. The meltdown is the evidence. It is evidence that your child has been regulating all day, quietly, impressively, alone, and that they trust you enough to stop performing, to stop holding, to let you be the person who sees them without the performance. A parent once asked me, she had 3 children, all of them well-behaved at school. She asked me why the one who needed her the most at home was also the one who apparently needed no one at school. I said to her, because she has built 2 different lives. One life where she is capable and collected and fine, and one life where she is allowed to be 7 years old. And she comes home to be 7 years old. Only with you. But here is where I need to stop and be very honest with you, because understanding why the meltdown happens is only half of it. The other half is what you do in the moment it arrives, and almost every parent I have ever sat with does the same thing. The child floods. Something fires in the parent's chest, and they move, they fix, they soothe, they solve, they redirect. They offer the snack, the hug, the explanation, the distraction. They rescue, and I understand it completely. I have done it myself. The sound of a child in distress is not something a loving parent can simply sit next to without wanting to make it stop. But here is what I have watched happen in kitchen after kitchen over more years than I will count. Every time you rescue, every time you move in too fast and make the feeling smaller, you teach your child one thing: that the feeling was too big, that it needed to be stopped, that they could not have survived it without you pulling them out. And a child who believes that grows into a person who cannot sit inside discomfort, who needs the rescue, who has never once been allowed to find the bottom of a hard feeling and discover, oh, I am still here. That is what the rescue impulse costs them. Not this meltdown, not tonight, the next 20 years. Knowing that does not make it easier to sit still when your child is in pieces on the kitchen floor. I know that, which is why sitting still is not what I am asking you to do. What I am asking you to do is learn the difference between presence and rescue, between the kind of staying that says, I am here and you are safe and this feeling will pass, and the kind of rushing in that says, this is too much, let me make it stop. One builds a child who trusts their own emotional floor. The other builds a child who can only feel safe when someone removes the feeling for them. Rue the cat, for the record, has mastered this entirely. He sits on the arm of the chair. He observes. He does not intervene. I have watched him outlast 3 separate meltdowns without moving a single whisker. There is something instructive in that if you are willing to take parenting advice from a cat. If tonight is one of those nights, if you are standing in the kitchen watching your child fall apart and feeling that pull in your chest that says, fix it, fix it, fix it, I want you to have something in your hands that is stronger than that impulse. The Rescue Reflex Blueprint is in the first link in the pinned comment below. It will show you exactly what to do with your hands, your voice, and your presence in that moment, so that your love becomes the thing that builds your child rather than the thing that quietly limits them. Click it. Tonight. Right now, while you still remember what this felt like to hear. And if you find yourself wondering, what about the child who doesn't fall apart? The one who is quiet in a different way, who goes to their room, who says they're fine and means something else entirely. That child has a story too, and it is one I will be telling very soon.